Hello, Frizzle fellas. Let me tell you a secret. I have always wanted to do a tier ranking list, but I never felt like I had a good enough idea for it. I have now come up with an idea that I really like, and I'm super excited not only to share this with you, but also to see the answers myself and try to find patterns in these rankings. We are ranking today the books I read in the first half of 2022. And right now, it's October, so I have had a minimum of 3 months emotional distance from all of these books. So the question that we're going to be ranking every single book on is, did this book grow on me? Like, looking back, has my opinion of this book gotten better or gotten worse with retrospect? So here are our tiers. At the bottom, we have Grew Like Mold. My opinion with distance and retrospect has been that this book is much worse than I thought of it in the moment. And mold is just something that grows way too well everywhere. Then we've got Grew Like Cacti. The title of this tier comes from me visiting my sister who lived in Phoenix, and we would go on walks, and there were always cacti growing into the sidewalk, and I'd have to avoid them to get prickled. So they're more negative growing things. Then Grew Stale. These are books that I have somehow lost all feelings and opinion on altogether, positive or negative. Then Grew Like Sugar, because sugar crystals growing is a slow but fun science experiment. And then Grew Like Mint, because mint plants grow so well, and I had a fantastic one in the past, and now I'm trying to grow a new one, so this is sending it positive vibes through hopeful making it the top tier of this list. I am honestly flabbergasted that there is this much on this tier list. First up is Faded Blades. Grew Like Sugar. This is a short novel-size sci-fi romance. No complaints. Hollywood Dead. This is book 11 of the Sandman Slim series, and I gotta say, it grew like cacti. I loved this book when I read it, gave it 4 stars. But in retrospect, maybe like a 3-star. Spider-Man Darkest Hours. Grew Like Sugar. I think this is a nice book to recommend to fans of Spider-Man, and that has given it more warm fuzzies in my heart. And then the comic that was paired with that, originally I recommended reading this comic, but it's not really that good, you know? Blood and Fire. I could not tell you anything coherent about this book. That grew stale. Okay, Ballistic Kiss. This is book 11 in the Sandman Slim series, and I really didn't like it. But now, I have much more positive feelings about it. I'm gonna say Grew Like Mint. Because in the moment, this was such a letdown. This was such a drop in quality from the rest of the series. But you know, I think I had enough fun with it that in retrospect, I might have been too hard on this book, and I'm kind of itching to read the next book in the series, even though I promised myself I wouldn't because the series was going downhill. The Warded Man grew stale. I loved this book when I read it, but since then, meh. It's imaginative, it's wonderful, but The Desert Spear grew like cacti, just for the fact that this is the sequel to The Warded Man. How much I hate The Desert Spear is part of what's dragging that one down. Then we've got Demon Mage and a Martini, and another book in that series I'll just grandfather in, both to Grew Like Sugar. I put down this series because I wasn't quite engaged enough with it, but I'm kind of itching to go back. A Rip Through Time. I'm gonna say Grew Like Cacti, because I loved this book when I first read it, but since then I've read other books by the same author that I liked more. So this almost feels like a letdown of that author's talents. Then we've got the Nice Dragons Finished Last series. The entire series gets to go into Grew Like Mint, which is quite impressive because I was obsessed with this series when I read it. I read this entire series, all 5 books, in like 3 days. What can I say? It's only gotten better with time, and I'm really excited to read more from this author. Aeronauts Windless also grew like, my emotions want to put it into mint. But also, I'm starting to feel apprehensive of how long we might have to wait to get this sequel, and that brings it down to sugar. Something in the Night Side, meh. No more opinions. Ooh, Unsold. Honestly grew like mold because when I was first reading it, I thought 3 stars, it's pretty good, I'll probably continue the series. And then since then, I haven't had any desire to pick up the series. I haven't had any desire to continue with the series. So this one did not grow on me well. Lemire run of Moon Knight comics, meh, too weird. Firestarter by Stephen King, no feelings, head empty, stale. I rated it 1 star and I would still give it the 1 star. Then there's a lot more Moon Knights that would just go into no thoughts, head empty. The current run of Moon Knight comics, the one that is active, that has only gotten better as I've read more comics in it. Grew like mint. Fantastic. Beneath the Dark, I had a really nice interaction with the author of this book, actually. Is it still a 3-star book for me? Yeah, but it's a fond one. The Observer Effect. This has got to be Grew Like Sugar. I gave this 5 stars when I first read it, and now I'm about to pick up the sequel and like, oh, the anticipation is real. I love this series. Excited. Unravel, no thoughts, Hen Empty, Grew Stale. I don't have any opinions on this book anymore. A Far Wilder Magic. I loved it when I first read it, and I think I still love it even more. That's a sugary book. I like this distribution we're starting to get. Kind of hoping we're going to get more Grow Like Mold books because that's exciting, you know? Land of the Dead. I don't have many positive thoughts on that left. The Stardust Thief. I think we got to put this one in Grew Like Mold. I definitely liked this when I first read it, and this is Arabian folklore-inspired fantasy. And since then, I've read another Arabian folklore-inspired fantasy series, The City of Brass, and that one was far superior to this one. So this one, because one of the things that I liked about it when I read it is it was one of the first things that I had really read that felt like that, and it felt so unique. But now that uniqueness factor isn't as cool. Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. You know, we gotta put this in Grew Like Mint. I enjoyed this book when I first read it, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, ooh, the pacing in that book. You can pick apart every single plot beat and see how they all mash together. It's like flawless. While we're on the topic, let's grab the sequel, which I read later. Where are you? Here it is, Starsight, Grew Like Mold. I really did not like book 2 in comparison to book 1, and so much so that I'm like, why does this even exist? Couldn't Skyward have just been a standalone? Like, why? And I've heard from people that book 3 is just even less good and focused, so, yep. 1 Foot in the Fade. When I first read this, I rated it 1 star, and it grew like mint. I might go back and rate it 1.5 stars. And the thing that swayed me on this one is that I was reading reviews, really positive reviews for this book, pointing out all of the things that this book did well. And that really did make me stop and pause and say, this book does have some redeeming qualities. And that was honestly a really positive experience, and I found some great book reviewers to follow from that. Blood and Moonlight. This is a YA fantasy mystery romance. I like it still. Fond feelings for that one. Ooh, we're not going to be able to see the book soon. I'll have to shrink the window. Here we've got Foundry Side and Locklands. Both of them grew like mold. I do not understand why these books are so popular, because I felt like the writing style was disjointed and unmotivated, and I didn't really connect with any of the characters. So the petty part of me wants to dislike it even more now that I've seen everyone else's joy at these books I disliked. This Vicious Grace grew like cacti. It was really addictive reading in the moment, but whatever now. Then I went on a Alpha and Omega series binge by Patricia Briggs, and all of these grew like mint. Absolutely fantastic. Every time I read the series, I'm just in awe of it even more. And then we've got a short story collection by Agatha Christie, The 13 Problems. Grew like cacti. When I first finished this book, I was thinking, I'm gonna go read some more Agatha Christie. And then since then, meh, not really. Hunger of the Gods. Grew like mold, honestly. I think part of my desire to like this book was because it was so well hyped, and I kind of wanted to get onto that hype train and find good things about it. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, really not for me. Too focused on the revenge plots and not enough focus on like fun love triangles, you know? Like I need some balance of both, and it was too far the other way. Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I originally gave it 4 stars. I think I dock it down to 3 now. I think the more negative reviews for this book that I come across, the more I'm like, those are some really good points. Yeah, this book really was oddly paced. Yeah, this book didn't really have any good characters in it. Take a hint, Danny Brown. Just grew stale. I didn't like it. I still don't. Since then, I've read some better romance novels, and I'm glad that this book didn't set me against the whole genre. But it was real close to making me give up on all romance books. Eclipse the Moon grew like sugar. This is another sci-fi romance book. Still very good. Ascendant, stale, Whatever. Rarkin's familiar. This is definitely grew like mint. This is one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this video, because when I first read this book, 4 stars. Very good. Loved it. But since then, I have not been able to stop thinking about this book and stop like having the desire to reread this book. So it's getting bumped up to 5 stars. Like this one grew so nicely in my brain. And then we've got some Rivers of London books. The novellas grew like sugar. The novel, Cacti. Bad. No plot development. The more I think about that, the more I am not looking forward to the next book in the series. This is Burn for me, and it is just our representative of the entirety of the Nevada Baylor books. I don't know why I didn't add all the pictures. I was getting lazy at some point, and the website kept crashing. Grew like sugar. Love that series now. When I first read it, meh, but now that I finished it, I'm like, that was nice. That was well done and well wrapped up. Lost Planet Homicide, Cacti. I had high hopes for it, but the more I think back on it, I'm like, what book? No, this is getting way too big. This is the normal amount of tier ranking things? Art of Prophecy grew like mold. I gave it 2 stars originally, and then I posted a negative review, and I got a comment that just boiled my blood. Here it is for you. And like, yeah, I hate this book even more now because I had this interaction about the book that insulted me, and I hate it. Stormfront, Dresden Files #1, grew like mint. Still love that series, and every time I read it, it's hitting the spot. Wild Magic by Tamara Pierce, gave it 1 star. Still 1 star. Yep. For the Station, another Rivers of London novella. Still sweet on that one. The Catalina Baylor books in the Hidden Legacy trilogy. I love those even more than the other ones now. The farther I get from that series, the more I'm like, can we just reread those now? Or have sequels? Or more books? Just more of these books, please. Uncanny Times, I originally gave 4 stars. It's a historical fiction monster hunter duo. Grew like sugar. I'm very much hoping for more books in this series. What If? This is a science-y book. Grew like cacti. I really enjoyed it in the moment, but the farther I get from it, the more I'm like, not as funny as I would have hoped. And Sunreach, I did not like this book. I like it even less. In retrospect, it's combined around with my feelings on the rest of the Skyward series, where the first book was good, and then why did we have to continue? Please stop. But I don't hate it quite as much as book 2, you know? Then a bunch of Hawkeye comics. Grew like cacti. I remember when I first read these years ago, I loved them. And then when I reread them now, it's like, meh, they're okay. Not quite enough of a plot engine for me. Probably never reread them again, I'm done. Third Grave, Dead Ahead. This is a mint. I loved it when I first read it, and now I'm like, what am I doing not reading the rest of the series? We gotta go. That also goes for Fourth Grave Beneath My Feet, the sequel to that one. Squirrel Girl Universe, stale, no more feelings about it. And then She Vanished, which is in the same series as The Observer Effect. Same feelings, loving the series, excited for more. Crooked Kingdom. I mean, I'm glad I read the 6 of Crow's books. But also, like, the farther I get from the ending of this book, the more I'm like, what the heck? So we're gonna say grew like mold. Ordinary Monsters. You know, I want to say grew like sugar. I think I had more negative feelings than positive feelings about this book when I first read it, and now it's a little bit more positive. Partials. I mean, I only read like 20% of this book, but I think it's gotta be grow like mold, because I had such high hopes for this book, and then it dashed them. And the farther I get from this book, the more I don't want to take a chance on this author again, because I've read some books by this author that I loved, and then this book, not really. And that's just so sad as a symbol of like, this author isn't perfect. Of course, there's no perfect author, but you know what I mean. Full Moon, another Dresden Files books. I feel like every day I love that series more. Here's the rest of the Catalina Baylor books. I guess they all get to go into Grew Like Mint. I guess I did put the pictures in after all. There was quite a time delay. These are in chronological order. Cruel Print series, I gave all these books 4 stars. But no, I don't really think I have any positive feelings towards them left. The excitement of reading them is just not enough to carry me on, you know what I mean? Counselor, I really didn't like when I first read it. Too boring. Gave it 2 stars. I think it has grown on me a little bit though. Like, I don't think it was as bad as I was thinking in the moment. It just wasn't the book for me on that day, you know? All Systems Red, Murderbot Diaries. I love these books so much. I've reread them so many times. But honestly, after rereading them this time, I gotta say that my love for the series only went down. I've always been able to acknowledge the flaws of this series, but I think at this, like my 5th reread, I'm finally like, you know, yeah, Those are starting to bother me, because before they never really did. That goes also for Murderbot 2 and Murderbot 3. If you're wondering where the rest of the Murderbot books are, check back in 6 months when I do this for the second half of 2022. Intergalactic Exterminators Inc. I gave this a negative review and now I don't really have any emotions about it. The Crippled God, which is the last book of the Malazan series, I gotta say grew on me like mold. Full disclosure, I only read the first 2 chapters of this before giving up, but there were definitely some redeeming parts of this. But the more I've thought about like everything about this book that bothers me, I'm like, what is this writing style? Why did I even decide to pick this up? Like, I respect the people who like it, but not for me. Dingo and Sister grew like sugar. This is a haunting story about post-apocalyptic Australian outback life. I Hunt Killers. I want to put it in grew like mint because this series, it's so good. But I just read another book by this author that I hated so much. Honestly, that does sour my experience of this a little bit. Because part of my happy experience of this series was the hope that I had found a new favorite author, but no, I found another flawed author, as they all are, of course. So it's gotta get bumped down to grew like sugar. Like, still really good, and I'll put number 2 and number 3 also there. The Maltese Falcon, I enjoyed it when I first read it, but I don't think I ever want to return to this type of book or this genre of like the intensely 1930s detective noir, where it's all just about like the darkness, the detective, the mysteriousness, like where plot, where characters. No. And the last book is Winterkeep. And this has got to be grew like mint. I've got such fond memories about this book. Winterkeep is the 4th book of the Graceling series, a series that I really loved as a tween. And I really loved this book, and the farther I get from it, the more I'm just like, yeah, that is a really good book. Like, I really loved all the character work in that one. So, these are the books. Behold the books! And what are any conclusions we can make? I mean, there isn't much rhyme or reason to what I originally thought of the book, and if it went up in my opinion or down in my opinions. Yeah, I'm looking at every single tier, and in every single tier there's books that I liked and rated 4 stars or above, or disliked and rated 2 stars or below, in every single tier. A special thank you to all of my patrons. And if you want to join my patron book club, that's only $2 a month, and we are having a blast over there. You can also get bonus videos, early videos, merch, pretty much everything you would want. Thank you for watching.